In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to replace the Human Touch Super Novo sound PCB. First thing we're going to do is power off the chair and unplug it. Next, we'll use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 4 screws that secure the rear plastic shroud. Next, we're going to slide that rear shroud backward as far as it'll go. There's a cable that restricts it, and then we're going to turn it to the right. We're trying to just get it out of the way enough to expose the PCB cover underneath it, like so. Next, we'll use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 2 screws that secure the PCB cover. Then we're going to lift it up just enough to expose there's a connector right there that we need to disconnect. That connector is for the recline safety sensor. Once the connector is disconnected, then we can remove the PCB cover. To do that, though, it's attached with slots in a tab on each side of the back, 2 different slots and tabs. So you kind of need to start on one side, push backward while pulling up. It'll kind of pop off like that, and then do the same thing on the other side. Now we're ready to disconnect the connectors from the sound PCB. And then we can use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 4 screws that secure the board to the chair. Before we can remove the board from the chair, the remote connector is plugged into a special connector coming from the back of the board, and it's very difficult to disconnect. So we're going to remove the 4 screws that secure the main PCB just so we can lift up the main PCB to get that remote connector out of the back of the sound PCB. So once you can lift the front edge up, then disconnect the remote connector from the back of the board, and then you can remove the sound PCB from the chair. To install the new sound PCB, first note the pinhole alignment on the remote connector. and then align it with that remote connector facing backward. And then also note the pinhole alignment on the remote cable. It's really important that you align the pins with the connector so that you don't break any pins. So hold that board in position then, align those pins, and make that connection there before lowering the sound PCB into position. Once he's in position, you can replace the screws to secure the sound PCB. And then reconnect all the connectors. Okay, once we're sure we've connected all the cables, there's no loose cables anywhere, and they're all securely connected, we can replace the 4 screws to secure the main PCB. Now we're ready to install the PCB cover. Note that there's these slots on the cover. Those are going to be installed over those tabs in the back on each side. And those tabs actually kind of have a hook on the top that secure them. So we need to lift the PCB cover in and down onto the top of those tabs. And make sure those are installed properly along the back before we lower it into place in the front. You can feel with your fingers to make sure that the tabs are coming through the slots. And then we can connect that cable. Super important that we remember to connect this cable, otherwise the chair will not recline. Okay, we're ready to install the 2 screws to secure that PCB cover. Now we're ready to turn this rear plastic shroud around, and we can start by sliding this into position inside the side panels of the chair, obviously. But then we need to check a couple things back here. First, we want to make sure the screw holes are aligned, of course. But then we need to feel with our fingers underneath the back to make sure there aren't any cables sticking out to the rear of the chair frame there. All the cables should be in front of there. That's important because the rear shroud needs to be able to bounce up and down a little bit, which is how it makes the safety sensor work. So if there's cables in the way, it will not bounce up and down, and so we can't have that. So make sure that the shroud bounces up and down a little bit, like was just shown. Then we can replace the 4 screws to secure it. Okay, then all that's left to do is plug in the chair, power it on, and confirm that the chair is now working properly.